I'm Brenda Quintana coming to you from the Beehive. Today I'm going to show you how to make this Pretty Pines note card using the Pretty Pines Thinlits with all these cool little pine and pine cone pieces and the pine bow embossing folder. And you can't see this very well on the camera, but the pine bow embossing folder creates these embossed pine bows, and then I went in and I sponged them with garden green ink so it really has a lot of texture. And this little pine cone I've also added a little bit of texture to, so even though this card looks a little simple, it's got some really nice touches on it. So let me show you how to make this card. To start off with, you're going to need your Big Shot, and I'm going to be using the Whisper White note cards and envelopes. So let me just pull out a note card like this. I've already bent this note card along the score line so I can really see where the score line is, because that's going to help me when I use the pine bow embossing folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my card again, and I'm going to line up the side of the card with this little Stampin' Up! Logo right here. And I'm going to line up the edge with my score line. Then I'm going to just remove my cutting plates for a moment. We're going to be working on the base platform. And then I'm going to take one of my cutting plates and put it down. This is a little tip that I learned from doing several of these cards. You'll want to put the embossing folder in first rather than the card in first. When I put the card in first, it created some little wrinkles on my card, and I don't know if you can see that really well, but when I put the embossing folder in first, those little wrinkles don't appear. So I'm going to put the embossing folder down first, so it goes through the machine first, and then another cutting plate right on top. Make sure it is straight because it just fits through perfectly. And then let me crank this through. And there we go, the embossing is done. Now we're still going to need the Big Shot for one more thing. So I've got my platform, and this time I'm going to need my thin die adapter, and I'm going to put down a cutting plate. I'm going to need a scrap piece of chocolate chip cardstock, and I'm going to lay that down. And then I'm going to use one of the pine cones from the Pretty Pines Thinlits. There are 3 pine cones here, actually 5 if you count the outlines. We're not going to use the outlines, we're going to use these detailed ones. So there's 3 different types. There's one here that cuts out little diamonds, one that cuts out little triangles, and then there's this one that has these little dots on the back. This is the one that you're going to need. And I'm just going to put this down on my cardstock, and then we'll run it through. And then to remove it, I'm just going to take my paper piercing tool and poke gently through the hole to kind of release my little pine cone like that. Then to give my pine cone a little texture, I'm going to take my Stampin' Pierce mat, and I'm going to work on one of the sides of the pine cone, and I'm going to take my smallest ball of my stylus tool from my Simply Scored scoring tool, and I'm just going to poke down on these little V's, and I'm going to poke through to the front, and that's going to kind of create a little bit more texture on my pine cone than if I would just leave it like that. There's some smaller V's at the bottom and the top of the pine cone. I'm not going to be able to push those through all the way to the front. I'm just going to kind of push down on those smaller V's that won't go all the way through. And I can just show you a little bit. I can compare it to one. This one's the one where I push through, and this is the one that is just flat. So you can see a little bit more texture on the one on the left side. Next, we're going to bring the note card back in, and I'm going to need my garden green ink pad. So let me open that up. And I've got a sponge dauber here, and I'm just going to ink it up a little bit in my green ink. And I'm going to carefully, gently just run my dauber along the texture of the pines. Careful just to stay right on top of it and just hit the pines. It's an easy way to color the pine boughs, you just have to go really gently. Don't press down very hard. You're just running it gently on each of the little branches. And I just have 2 more to do. And then this one down here at the corner, like that. Then I'm going to need my cherry cobbler ink pad. And I'm going to be using the greeting Joy to the World from the Tin of Tags stamp set. And this Tin of Tags stamp set has a matching kit that goes with it, but you can buy the stamp set separately. So if you get the stamp set, you might also want to get the Tin of Tags project kit to go with it so you can stamp some tags for yourself. Then I'm just going to ink up my greeting, and I'm going to stamp it near the bottom right corner, like that. Then to create a nice little embellishment for the top of my card, I'm going to use the Baker's Trio Pack. And what I'm going to do is line up all the ends of all 3 of these together. And I'm going to tie a bow with them. So to do that, I'm just going to kind of hold it together, and I'm going to create one little loop, and then I'm going to create another little loop, and I'm going to tie these together. Make sure I grab all my little guys on the loop on the one side and then bring them together, and then can make sure I grab all 3, and I'm going to make this bow just a little bit smaller. Bring it in just a little bit more. And the gold thread in this bow actually really kind of helps keep everything nice and tight together. It's a little stiffer than the other 2, so it helps it to kind of bring it in a little bit. Okay, and that looks kind of cute. So let me cut off the bow on the one side and then cut the bow off on the other side. And I'm going to bring my pine cone back in, and I'm going to take a glue dot and my paper piercing tool. I'm just going to fold over one of my mini glue dots because it's a little large for the Baker's Twine. So I've kind of just folded it over onto itself to make it a little smaller. And I'm going to put that right at the top of my pine cone. I'm going to take the little bow I created and stick it right at the very top. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to use some Tombow glue and put a little bit on the back like that. And then I'm just going to position this up near the top of my pine bow like that and just pat it down like that. And there you go, a really pretty note card that didn't take too much time to make at all. And it's got all of this great texture on it with the pine cone and the pine branches. All the supplies you'll need to make this note card are available for purchase on my blog. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Bye for now. If you like this tutorial, be sure to check out all the free with purchase tutorials available on my blog. The Hershey's Turkey tutorial is just one of the exclusive tutorials that you can choose free with a minimum purchase in my Stampin' Up! Store.